Hello and welcome to mod tip number 3. Welcome back. I'm glad you're back. This tip was called Seemingly Conflicting Truths. And this one is actually one that is challenging for most of us. And as I get into it, you'll see why, and you'll probably have specific things that come to your mind that you've struggled with. And hopefully this will help you with that. So seemingly conflicting truths, and the key word there is truths. But there are truths in this world that seem to conflict each other, and that is hard for us to balance. And oftentimes we will end up in an extreme of one of those parts of the truth. So I want you to think for a minute of a color wheel. So if you've ever seen a color wheel, I actually had one, but I could not find it. But a color wheel has all these different colors, right, around the outside. And if you take, for example, blue on one side of that color wheel, you will find that it has complementary opposites and colors that kind of go with it, but they're not the same color. So an example of that would be like blue and yellow. Blue and yellow are complementary, but they're not the same. And when you take those two colors that are so different and you put them together, they actually look pretty good together. But they also, when they're brought together, they can make a whole new color, which is green. And let me give you an example of different colors or truths in our world that seem like there's no way they can really go together, but when you do put them together, they actually make a new cool color, like green. So an example of that would be love and law. Love and law are two seemingly contrary opposites, and yet they do and are meant to go together. But oftentimes people get stuck in one or the other. So another way of saying love and law would be like mercy and justice. That can be a really hard one for people. And sometimes we'll either be, I'm totally merciful and loving. That's the one I think a lot of us really are drawn to. But I think there's another good chunk of us that are drawn to the no. We need law, we need order, and at the expense of love and mercy, because they don't either know how or want to do the work to balance the two. We often either don't know how, which I think is more common than really not caring. I think most people care, but it is work. As I said, moderation, flip that M over and it's a W, and it means work. And it takes work to know how to balance love and law and mercy and justice, but those are meant to come together in a balance. And the Savior was a classic example, the best example we have of knowing how to bring those two seemingly contrary things together and creating something very beautiful from that. Something that we all need, which is mercy. But law is a real thing, and God is a God of law, and there are consequences, whether we like it or not, to choices that we make, right? So where does mercy fit in? And can mercy really rob justice? No, it can't. And so we have to find that balance is the point. The Savior is really the way to find that balance. And so that mod voice that we've been talking about, that moderation voice, is really, really key to helping us to balance love and law, mercy and justice. So I want to share a story that kind of set this whole concept into motion for me. I would say if I was to choose which one I am more like, love or law, mercy or justice, I'm probably more on the love mercy side. Although I've always known that law is very important, and so is frankly justice. And so that's been something that I've really struggled with. So many years ago, I was sitting, I was meeting with my, a lot of people would call it their pastor, but in my church, it's called a bishop. I was meeting with my bishop, not for this topic, but it just kind of came up, and I think he was inspired by the mod voice to talk to me about it, the inspiration voice. He just randomly to me starts sharing about this experience that was shared with him. And basically, we had a higher leader than him come in, and he was talking to him and other bishops, and he was saying, something to the effect of which one's more important, spirit of the law or letter of the law? Like, and he didn't quite let him answer right at that moment, but he said, you will often find when you're working with other leaders that they are either letter of the law leaders or spirit of the law leaders. And you might think for a minute, which one are you? Are you spirit of the law? Or are you letter of the law? That's kind of like mercy or justice or, love and law. So anyways, he said, which one is more important? Like, which one's better of the two? If you're going to be a leader, should you be a spirit of the law or you should be letter of the law? Like, which one is the one that you should lead out with? How do you do this? And the answers were varied. Okay, so these are all leaders that this higher leader is talking to. And some of them said, oh, I'm definitely spirit of the law, or this person's spirit of the law, I'm letter of the law, And he said, the answer is both. You need both. You need to balance that, the spirit or the love and the letter. Like, they're both important and they have to come together. Well, I don't know why he shared that with me, but I have pondered on that. This was probably 12 years ago. I don't know. It was a long time ago. And I've never forgotten that. And I often thought it's really important that we have both. So how do I balance those two seemingly opposite things? Like, if I am too merciful, that means that people get away with everything. Like, should I just let my kids, I have 6 children, so should I just let them, in the sake of mercy and love, should I just let them do whatever they want? Now that just seems wrong, right? That just feels like, no, obviously there's got to be some order and structure. And if you look at any kind of psychology that's legit, you're going to find that there has to be order and structure. It builds safety, security, and self-esteem and self-worth when there's order and structure. And so you have to have it. But then there also has to be mercy. And when do you apply that mercy? And so that's where that moderation voice that we talked about a lot, especially in tip number 2, is learning to let that inner voice, that mod voice, tell you need to let go on this one. You need to be a little more firm on this, or you need to just let them have their way this time. Or I can't tell you all the ways he's going to guide you to know how to respond to things, but I know that if you will listen, he will help you know when is it time to be more like love-based and focused, and when is it time to hold the boundary and the line. It's not so black and white. Like, as you learn about like healing from past trauma and stuff like that, one of the big, and right now, currently at this time in the world, it is a big, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a big thing right now. A hot topic, that's the word I'm looking for. It's a hot topic right now, is boundaries. And so you may be like, oh, boundaries, I've heard that so much. But it's all about setting boundaries, right? Healthy boundaries for yourself, with others. And basically a boundary really is it's set on yourself. It's not really set on others, because you can't really control other people. So the boundary is really for yourself. But the point is that you're supposed to set these healthy boundaries, right? Well, a problem, and maybe if you've been doing this for a little while, you are starting to recognize that there's a problem with it. One of the problems with it is, if you go long enough, you're going to find that very soon nobody's safe to have within your boundaries. Like, you're not going to have really very many people in your world, because most people are, well, I'd say all people are human. And if you give them enough time, even the people you like really admire, if you're around them enough, you're going to realize that they're human just like you, and they're going to make mistakes. And there's going to be times where they cross the boundary. And I'm not talking about really inappropriate boundaries. I'm talking about like boundaries of just, sometimes we get lazy. Sometimes we're not kind. Sometimes we don't say the right thing at the right time. Or maybe there's times where we get a little selfish. And anyways, so if you wait too long, like, I mean, if you're too strict on that, you're going to be alone. And so there has to be a moderation piece in that. There has to be a knowing when to hold the line, so to speak, or hold the boundary, and knowing when you need to relax the boundary. And I think that's critical. So that moderation voice can help you to know that. When is it appropriate? When is it not appropriate? I have rules. I have 6 children, and I'm very organized. And so to me, it's the only way to stay sane and have that many children. So I have to be pretty organized, but I also have to be incredibly flexible. And without that flexibility, I'm not a very good mom. I'm scary. Like if I have really strong boundaries that I like enforce all the time, I become more of the drill sergeant and less of a nurturing giver or nurturing caregiver. My kids need boundaries. Absolutely. We all need them. But they also need mercy. They also need those times where we set the rules aside for just a minute and focus on that this person just needs a hug. Yes, they did something unkind to someone near them in the family, but maybe it's because something is going on inside of them that is causing some intense pain that you don't know about. And they're taking it out on the person around them. And so setting down the rule for a minute so you can get to the bottom of why is this person acting out? That's love, right? Looking at, spirit of the law and taking them in and saying, okay, hey, this isn't like you. What's going on? Are you okay? Did something happen at school today? So I'm not the best. By the way, just because I teach these things does not mean I'm an expert at doing them all the time, but I am practicing. And that's one thing I will illustrate or emphasize with you all the time is we're just working on progressing. We're working on incorporating these new things into our world that will help make our relationships so much better and our experiences in life so much better. So practice it and listening to that voice. I know when I need to break the rules, so to speak. I'll give you an example. So this was many years ago, actually. I wasn't planning on sharing this. It just came into my mind. But many years ago, I'm pretty strict about bedtime. Bedtime is really important to me because, people are really grumpy when they don't get enough sleep. And I am one of those people. So anyways, so I am pretty very organized in that way. And one night I just had this feeling like someone was up. And so I went out of my room. Maybe I was getting a drink of water. I don't know, but I just know that I was kind of guided to leave my room. And so I went out of my room, and to my total surprise, I have a kid sitting on the stairs. Like my room is right here. There's the hallway, and straight in front of that hallway is the stairs going upstairs. And I see that kid, and my first instinct was to give him the what for and send him to bed. Like, what are you doing out of bed? And then that moderation voice came in, and it was like, don't, it knew what I was about to say. It was like, don't do it. Don't do it, Captain. And I just felt this, just listen to him, just listen. And so I totally took a different approach, and I said, hey, what's going on? Are you okay? What's going on? And my best mom moments are always when I listen to the mod voice. So anywho, turns out this kid is having major, major challenges at school with a person, and they were really struggling, and they needed mercy. They needed the spirit of the law, not the letter of law in that moment. And we had to break protocol to have that moment. And I am so grateful. And that's one thing you will notice when you listen to that mod voice, you will be so grateful that you did. And if you don't listen to it, you won't know what you missed, but you'll also know you messed up because you won't feel right inside. And anyways, so I am so glad I listened, and I was able to listen to that child and offer some words of encouragement and comfort that they needed in that moment. I've had that so many times, especially as a mom, but even with just people on the streets, in the grocery stores, or at, my church community or my neighbors, I have that happen often. And so listen to that voice. It will tell you when it's time to set the rules aside for a minute and focus on that individual. And anyways, so Very critical, very important. The mod voice can help you with that. So I don't know if I should share this or not. Yeah, I think I should. Okay. So I had this dream. I think I mentioned that one of my gifts of the Spirit is dreams. And maybe I haven't, but it is. And I won't share most of my dreams, but this one I felt that I could share. And so I will. In this dream, I was, and I hope this doesn't come off offensively because I never mean that, but we all have our fears. Everybody has their things that like make them nervous because they don't understand it. Usually that's what makes us nervous, is that we don't understand or we don't feel safe or it's new to us. So I probably justified myself a little bit, but I did make some judgments in my dream. And so that's why I'm saying that. So in my dream, the beginning of the dream is I'm walking into this town and there's people living on the streets and I'm feeling very unsafe. This is, to me, at that time when I had the dream, that was very threatening to me, very scary to me. So I'm like really nervous, and this man comes like walking out of the group of people that are living on the streets. And I don't know if he was living on the streets or not, but he comes walking out. He's got that long, it's kind of stereotypical, but he had that long black like coat thing on that, like in the movies when they open up their jacket and they got all the watches and the stuff. It kind of reminded me of that. And he's all in black, and he starts following me. And so I'm nervous. I look ahead of me and I see a gas station. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm going to that gas station. So I head to this gas station and he's still following me. So I'm kind of moving a little faster, and without running, I'm moving as quickly as I can. And I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I also don't feel safe. And so I kind of walk into that gas station thinking, I'll be safe if I'm in there because there'll be other people. And I get in the gas station and that man walks in. He didn't want anything to do with me. He had no ill intent towards me. He just was heading to the gas station also. So he goes into the gas station and I see a few people in there. It's a little different than a normal gas station, but it's similar. It has the little aisles. It has the person with the register. There's a woman at the register, and standing next to her is a man. And I can tell instantly this man is in charge. He is the owner of the gas station. I can just tell. And the woman works for him or works with him. And there's a few other people kind of milling around in the gas station. And that guy comes in and he says, I need a gift for my girlfriend. Like he's looking for a gift for his girlfriend. And the man who's the owner, he just kind of smiles. I can just feel that he really cares about this man. And he is not afraid of him like I was. And that he just cares. And so he kind of directs him to an area, and the guy goes, gets whatever it was, and then goes on his merry way. So in the meantime, another man comes into the gas station, different kind of, just a typical, I don't even know it's typical these days, but just an average guy. He walks in, he's kind of a big burly guy. And he walks in and he's looking for, and I don't know why I know this, but he's looking for food. He's looking for bread. And on the shelves, this is when I first really noticed the shelves, there's nothing on them except for a couple loaves of bread. And on the bottom shelf, there's white bread. And on the second shelf, the middle shelf, there's wheat bread. Now, I'm kind of a health food person. And especially when it comes to bread, because I am huge into making my own bread and making it, anyways, there's a whole process. I sprout my wheat, I then dry my wheat, and then I grind it and make my bread. So bread is really a big deal to me. It has a lot of meaning to me. And so I'm thinking, he's sitting there debating between the two loaves of bread, like the white and the whole wheat. And I'm thinking, go for the wheat. and so anyways, whatever. So he's like deciding, and it's really, I can tell he's really having a hard time deciding which one. And he finally picks, and I'm pretty sure he took the whole wheat. And I was like, yeah, good job, buddy. And then he pulls it off the shelf and he just goes to leave. And I'm like, okay, so remember mercy and our love and law, right? And I'm like, he's going to steal that loaf of bread. And so I'm thinking, I'm witnessing it. I don't know if anybody else is seeing this. I think I'm obligated to say something. Like I'm like, I'm not sure what to do. Honestly, I'm like, should I say something? Should I not say anything? Like, anyways, so he's like, and it's a really big loaf of bread. So it kind of takes some weight, like, meaning it's like he has to pull it off the shelf and he has to like carry it, and I'm thinking he's going out the door and he didn't even pay. And so I look to the cashier person. And I also look at they're kind of standing really close to each other. So it's easy to kind of look at both of them. But I'm looking at the owner because I just recognize he's in charge. And I'm like, he didn't pay, like he didn't pay. And I watch as an exchange happens between the cash register lady and the man. And the lady looks to him, not, like whether or not this guy should pay. She looks to him. And he just smiles and he says, it's okay, it's on me. And then she's like, okay, like, I mean, she just instantly, yep, of course. And then no big deal, right? And that guy leaves with his little, and he's all happy, with his loaf of bread. And I don't even know if he said thank you, honestly, but I can't remember that part. But anyways, so he leaves. And then, like, after watching that just exchange between the cash register lady and the man, I was so taken by it that I just started really looking closer at the man. And that's when I saw it. It was in his eyes. It was actually emanating from him, but it was really in his eyes. This absolute love just emanating from this man. And I knew he was the living bread. I knew that it was Christ. And I was like, oh my goodness, those two men could have had so much more. They went into his gas station. They could have had him. He was the whole point. I mean, there wasn't much on the shelves, right? Anyways, but he was happy to bless those men with what they wanted, not everything. He had so much more he could have given them himself. He had so much more he could have given them, but he was happy to give them what they wanted. And how does this apply with love and law? How does this apply to that moderation voice? Sometimes in our extremes, we, especially as if I'm speaking to Christians, if you happen to be a Christian and you're listening to this, maybe this affects other societies as well of, different like types of belief systems, but it definitely affects, I think, Christians. We know, a lot of us know what God has to offer and how much he wants to give us. And we really want that for ourselves, but we also want that for others. And sometimes we step out of moderation into an extreme where we want to force that on others, where we want to make that their thing that they want. And that somehow it's not being a good Christian if we don't. And that doesn't mean we don't share. I think it's really important to invite and share. And, but I marveled at how much love and joy the owner of that gas station had in pleasing the people that came in, like giving them what they wanted and satisfying the need that they wanted to fulfill, even if they didn't want the full thing, even if they didn't want it all. And maybe right now they didn't want it all, but who knows that maybe later, because of the love that they tasted and the lack of judgment and the lack of condemnation that they got inside that safe space, maybe they'll want more eventually. You just don't know. But I know for me, one of the extremes that I have stepped into, remember in my if you watch my introduction, I said that I went to my church to kind of fix my extreme imbalance. But it wasn't the church that failed me. That wasn't the problem. It was me. It was how I was living it that failed me. It was the extreme way I lived it. And that's what I'm talking about here is jumping out of those extremes. It's not love is the only thing. Like all you need is love. That's not true. We need order. We need law. If everything was based just simply on we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to have, any tension between people. So we'll get rid of all law and order and just have love. Think of what that would honestly do to a society if there was no law, because not everybody lives by, I will treat everyone with respect. I will treat everyone with kindness. There are people who will take advantage of and hurt and destroy all that is good in this world if there is no boundaries. And so we need order, we need law. But think about if there was no love connected to that law. Like, think about if we just had law and order with no compassion, no love, no sense of respect for, the needs of others emotionally and socially. And anyways, think of how horrid of a life that would be. So we have to have that beautiful balance. And the Lord is really good at showing and teaching us that balance. So listening to that Maud voice will help you know, just like I knew that night to stop and listen to that child, will help you to know when to listen, when to be still, when to be quiet, and when to exercise law and order. There are definitely times where you have to. So chew on that one for a little bit, and know that God loves us enough to give us agency to let us choose things, but he also has law involved in his order and in his structure. And that moderation voice can kind of help you when it comes to your personal life, know when to exercise that love or that law and how to combine them, how to bring them together into a really symbiotic relationship. So chew on that one. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next one.